Next, we're going to look at some of the qualities research has identified are signs that a relationship is not on the right track. And they are criticism, contempt, defensiveness, and stonewalling. John Gottman calls these the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. Let me explain what each of the 4 horsemen are in a little more detail. Criticism is when you attack your partner's character, and it usually involves a generalization like, "you never," or "why you so?" Criticism is harmful because it puts you on opposite teams rather than working together for the best of the relationship. It can leave you feeling like, if I'm not good enough, I might as well give up. Partners lose motivation to work on the relationship when they feel this way. Criticism unfortunately tears your partner down rather than building them up and should definitely be avoided at all costs. I like to differentiate between criticism and feedback. Criticism is hurtful and leaves your partner feeling like they're inadequate in some way, whereas feedback highlights a blind spot and encourages your partner to grow. There's a big difference between, "Why are you so blind? You never see the crumbs on the kitchen bench," compared to, "Honey, after you chop the veggies, could you be sure to wipe the bench down?" Whenever you're making requests or offering feedback, just watch the tone of your voice, because remember, that influences a lot of how your partner hears what you say. The second one in the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse is contempt. And that involves attacking your partner's sense of self using words and behaviours like insults or name-calling or sarcasm. So an example of contemptuous behaviour would be rolling your eyes at your partner. And an example of name-calling is if you call your partner ugly or fat. Sarcasm is a horrible one because it suggests you don't believe in your partner. For example, saying, "Yeah, you're a really hard worker." Or if your partner struggles to reverse park, you might say, "You're such a great driver." It's all in the tone of voice, isn't it? But essentially what you mean is the complete opposite of what you're saying. If you and your partner continuously relate to one another this way, it will erode the positive feeling in the relationship and leave it feeling very cold. Contempt is one of the biggest predictors that a relationship is heading towards divorce. If you think that you are in this sort of relationship, it's really important that you stop the sarcasm and non-verbal digs and put into practice the skills I'm teaching you, regardless of what your partner is doing. The 2 of you have fallen into unhelpful ways of relating, so it's imperative that one of you begins to shift this. The next one is being defensive. When you're defensive, you see yourself as the victim. So rather than responding to what has been said, you make excuses to deflect responsibility. For example, "I didn't mean it like that, I was only trying to help." Or saying with an angry voice, "I'm not angry." You might also cross-complain, which is when you ignore what your partner says and you match their statement with a complaint of your own. So for example, after your partner says, "You aren't listening to me," you might reply, "You're the one who's not listening to me." It just kind of gets you nowhere. You could even perhaps disagree and then cross-complain. So for example, you might say, "That's not true, I only yelled at you because you raised your voice." Other examples are saying, "Yes, but," and repeating yourself without listening to your partner. When you are defensive, it's very hard to resolve conflict because your partner won't feel heard, and so they will escalate the conflict to get your attention. And this can leave you both feeling very frustrated and alone. The last of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse is stonewalling, and this is about withdrawing from the relationship to avoid conflict. Examples could be that you change the subject, you might quietly mutter to yourself, or you might be silent in a sort of smug way And sometimes you even physically remove yourself from the situation to avoid conflict from escalating. But you do this without giving an explanation to your partner, and this could leave them feeling abandoned by you. In the most extreme cases, couples may not talk to each other for days and sometimes even weeks. So it becomes like a punishment where the silence is deafening. It's a very unhealthy and hurtful way to deal with conflict. All of these behaviours convey disapproval and distance you from your partner. Research shows that when couples relate to each other in these destructive ways, so that there's a lot of criticism, contempt, defensiveness, and stonewalling in the relationship, then it's highly likely that the relationship will end in divorce. Negative words are so powerful that it takes 5 positive statements to offset 1 damaging statement. That's why I encourage couples to take a time out rather than letting conflict escalate and then saying hurtful words you can't take back. We're going to talk more about timeouts in a moment, but for now, on a bit of a brighter note, I'm going to give you the antidotes to the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse.